Chapter -3, Elven Avenue. Time for a rest? Asked Magal. No, shouted everyone. Okay, he said. Toll, your turn. Toll took the manuscript from Jax and started to read. Chapter -3, 11 Elven Avenue. At 11 Elven Avenue, Innisfree, the Dew family house looked perfectly ordinary alongside its twin next door. Both houses had standard solid glass roofs with two magic transporter turrets on either side. Their walls were made of purple and charcoal solar panels, and their windows were made of a transparent perspex designed to cut out all harmful rays. Each house had 6 stories above ground and 12 cellars underneath the earth. Sorry, I've lost my spot. Around the outside of the house ran a sealed roller coaster ride that connected each of the 6 stories in rain, hail, or shine, as well as zooming underground to the cellars. Both houses were set on a couple of acres, the same amount of land that had been given to every householder 2 centuries before. And there were no fences, given that stealing had been eradicated at the same time as the great redistribution of the island's wealth. Some people suspected that greed would always exist in Dragolan, but many optimists liked to hope that people would be satisfied once everyone was given an equal share of the island's resources. The Jew's house had been built over 2 centuries before and had remained in the family since then. Isla Thieve lived next door to the Jews. She had inherited her home from her parents. There were some loud groans when students heard Isla's name. Boo, called some who knew of Isla's cruelty. But Angel stood up and held her staff high above her head. Stop, she said firmly. We do not condone hatred here. We know Isla Thieve and her husband have behaved badly, but it is not our place to judge them. Leave that to the ancient ones. They will know how to treat them for the good of the whole universe. The people who'd booed looked down and shuffled a bit. There's no shame to you if you booed, Angel continued, but please don't do it again and teach others not to. Everyone murmured agreement, and Toll grinned at Angel. Thank you, he said. Hatred is not good. It starts wars. Petrel and I saw the aftermath of that over the past few years. It wasn't good. I think that needs to say Petrel and I have seen the aftermath of that over the past few years on the Islands of Flame. On the Island of Flame. It wasn't good. Toll gazed out at everyone. Ready to continue? He asked. Yes, shouted everyone. Nell and Isla had been neighbours since birth, although they'd never enjoyed the closest of relationships. Sorry, I've lost my spot again. Nell was an imaginician, but Isla thought Nell's magic was against God. She was always trying to get Nell to visit her church to be cleansed, but Nell didn't want to be cleansed by someone like Isla, who was rude to just about everyone she met, except for the Prime Minister, because she thought he could help her get all the things she wanted. Isla wasn't one of the people who liked all the island's wealth being fairly shared. Sadly, Isla was not a nice person at all. You could see the difference between Isla and Nell if you looked at the Jew's garden and then the outside of Isla's home. The Jews had the most amazing trees and several tree houses, plenty of swings, thousands of different flowers, lots of fruit trees and bushes, and heaps of vegetables and herbs. There were bees and birds everywhere. In contrast, Isla's garden was not nearly as imaginative. Isla had introduced quite a lot of grey concrete to her outside area and only a few plants. When Isla married Bishop Filbert Thieve, he was still a bishop, and at his request she replaced any remaining plants she had in her garden with concrete monuments to the religion of Filbert Thieve. But before very long at all, Filbert Thieve was excommunicated from the church of the greatest people ever. He'd behaved badly. No one knew quite what he'd done, but some said he'd been very cruel to some of the guide dogs who came to the church to lead people who had no sight. What a terrible thing! Whether it was true or not, no one knew exactly, but there was something very wrong with him, and he was forced to stop calling himself a bishop. Instead, he called himself the Overlord and made everyone else call him Overlord Thieve. No matter what anyone else thought, Solo and Toll were convinced that the Overlord had almost certainly harmed the guide dogs. There was something about him that made their skin crawl. They decided to avoid Overlord Thieve at all costs, and also his rather grand wife. She claimed to be a baroness, but no one called her that on Dragolan. People just flat out refused.